AmandaLand, AmandaLand, AmandaLand. Hello. Why? You ever have too much sleep? I think I had too much sleep, y'all. I think I had too much sleep. I'm like cranky, but I slept. How that make sense? I don't understand it. But I'm cranky. So I gotta uncrank. Also, where y'all at? It's 10:10. Why is there only 94 people here? What are we doing? Why is everybody late to class? You see what I mean? I'm cranky. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Views from AmandaLand. Your news and truths by any joke necessary. Also, let me let y'all know that YouTube has not been alerting people. Like, it's not like people are signing up and they're not getting alerts. So if that's happening, you need to report it to YouTube because that's not cool. And I feel like that's shade. But welcome to Views from AmandaLand. Your news and truths by any joke necessary. Thank you for waking up on the right side of history. We have a great show today. We have Logan Grendel joining for 60-minute, 60-second headlines. We also have the executive director of the Working Families Party, Maurice Mitchell, joining. If you have questions for either of them, remember to address them. Actually, I'm not sure what Logan's pronouns are. Just address Logan as just almighty. Just do that. Because Logan is all the things. So I mean, just great one. I think we'll cover it, in my opinion. So you could do that. It's this weird time of year where it's like kind of hot, but kind of cold, but not really, but kind of. So I feel like, or maybe I'm just perimenopausal. I got a lot going on in my brain today. I'm gonna tell you why. I have a lot going on in my brain today because I'm traveling tomorrow. And it's the first time that I'm traveling internationally in the midst of this fuckery that we're in. And the amount of preparing that I have had to do is truly just, I mean, it's really unfortunate how I don't know, I'm just kind of ranting right now. I'm venting, but it's just where we are. And you have to truly not take it lightly and not take it for granted. And the fact that I had to record a video saying that if you're watching this video, I've been detained, and, asking for, amplification, the fact that I have to provide my family and friends with contacts for each other, the fact that I, had to procure representation just in case, all of these things I feel they of course are where we are, and we are where we are. Let me also make sure to say this too, we're at this particular zenith based on a number of reckless actions by the last couple administrations. However, I have to also remind us that this is where we're going. This is where we were always going. So there was this is where it was always going. It was always going here from day one. That's the thing. The path never diverted from when they created a nation built on genocide that was funded by genocide. There was never there was never going to be an outcome other than this. unless there was an actual reconstruction of culture and of morality and ethics. So these are the things that I tell myself as I prepare, because I know that for some reason, the higher powers, the ancestors, whatever, wanted me to be here in this body, in this form, at this time. And, there's no reason to really question that. It's only to accept it and move through it with as much poise and warrior strength and grace as possible. And that's really what I do or try to do every day. The only certainty I have is that I'm here. That's it. That's the only certainty. So all of the shifts and changes that are happening in the world, I had a very effective therapy session yesterday. And it's also mirrored by the fact that it's like my world that I thought existed ended last year, almost to the day. Like, we're in April. It was a year ago that I had a whole entire smear campaign lodged against me because of literally just my existence. Amanda Seales is unlikable. Not because she's cheating people or she's sexually assaulting people, not because she's sexually harassing people, not because she's frauding people, not because she is disrespecting people, not because she is homophobic or transphobic or misogynist or racist, or not because she's, having sex with donkeys. Like, there's nothing, none of that, just because she doesn't stand for genocide and she doesn't stand for Black bullshit. And that's really the real. It's like these two like factions said, yeah, let's get her. We over here, we think it's cool to kill Palestinians, and we think it's cool to commodify and capitalize on Black culture while weaponizing it. And they're both like, coming together. And I was like, no. And they were like, pew, 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 pew. It was a year ago. A year ago. And you know what? I'm still here, bitches! And thank y'all for being here with me. Someone said DJ Clue. Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be here till I'm 80. And I feel like it's going to be really annoying because I'm going to be watching people when I'm 60 acting like I didn't say what I said now. That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm going to be 60 and folks is going to be like, oh my God, did you know? And I'm going to be like, oh my God, what are we talking about? So just wanted to give you all an understanding of like where my state of mind is. And I want to thank y'all. Someone asked, how will we know that you're all right? Because either I'll tell you, and if I don't tell you, then I'm not. Ba-dum-bum. So that's how it's gonna go. But ultimately, I just want to always thank y'all because, the SEAL Squad, the SEAL Squad, the AmandaLanders, like, we up, we up, we up. Yes, Rolando, that's a great, join the Patreon. That's a great way to know I'm going to be all right. Because as you know, I'm going to be out for the next week. So I'm giving you all an assignment today. I'm giving you all your assignment while I'm out. Okay? Just like last time, how I gave you an assignment and then we came back and we had, oh my God, Suzette Benzo is here. Yay! Suzette been down. Okay. The day ones. The day ones. You know what, Andrew? You know what? Let me just tell you though. Let me just tell you. Sometimes I'll be putting on the red lipstick because I'm not all right. But the red lipstick is a distraction. Right? The red lipstick will let you just pay attention to red lipstick because the lips is moving, even if the brain is like. So, and thank you, Fahad, for pointing this out. You literally have AmandaLanders all over the world. Wherever you go, just reach out to one of us. We'll make sure you're going to be okay. Shukran. Shukran. Alhamdulillah. So, here we are. It's hot as heck in my house. I refuse to put on the air conditioning in April again because I've done it, but I don't want to do it this early in the day. It just feels ridiculous. And it's time for us to get into our roll call. Come on, y'all. Let's do it. Let's find out where y'all at. AmandaLanders here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Come on. We got Raleigh, North Carolina, Oakland, Massachusetts in the building. Philly is always here. Antigua, Fresno, California, Waterloo, Iowa, Uptown, NYC, at the laundromat. I know about that life. España, Denver, The Hague, Netherlands. We got Ontario, Canada, Roanoke, and Santiago. Venezi, Calabrese. Hey, ATL shouted. Wilmington, Delaware, Watley, Alabama, with perfect attendance. Nice. Come on. AmandaLanders here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Chicago's back again. Nashville. We got London. We got downtown Farish District in Mississippi. We got Edmonton, Canada. Manali in South Africa. Sao Paulo. Obrigada. Edinburgh, Scotland. Cholula, Mexico. Rock City, New York. Newport Beach, California. Okay. We got the LBC. We got Delaware in here. Columbus, Ohio. East Orange, New Jersey. Patterson, New Jersey. Aloha from the Bay. Town Bees. Town Bees. Boring Orlando. Shout out to the 407. Kenya is in the building. Jumbo! Phoenix, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Stafford, VA. AmandaLanders here to learn. Thank you for telling me where you're watching from. Okay, Puerto Rico. Wait, do we have Kenya on the map? Yes, we do have Kenya on the map. But shout out to us. Yes. Shout out to us. Kenya. Hakuna Matata. All right. Yes, Renato said global reach. Global reach. Shall we get into our word of the day? You know when you have so much that you have to accomplish that you're tired ahead of what, like I have so much I got to do today. I feel like I'm tired about what I got to eventually do. By the way, shout out to Kenya that just pulled out of the World Health Organization. They was like, we can't really trust y'all no more because you've been putting the vaccines on our people. And so we got to let y'all go. They said we got to let y'all go. Africa is really, of course, it's going to be coons. But for the majority of Africa, they like, we not having it, y'all. We not having it. So we're going to talk about that later. Today's word of the day is raiment. Raiment. Not to be confused with waiment. Waiment. Okay? RAIMENT. This is a noun meaning clothing garments, raiment. Y'all were giving me props on today's raiment, right? Y'all said you liked my top. This is by Away New York. Raiment. I knew somebody was going to do it, and it was Rolando. Hold up, raiment. Can anyone use this in a sentence? Can anyone use this in a sentence? RAIMENT. Adrian says, Wayment. Miss Seals' raiments are always on point. Thank you. I do try my best to dress for y'all. Patricia, will there be no small doses bonus on Sunday? No, there won't. There will not be a small doses bonus on Sunday. Olivia Stevens says her raiment was falling all off her. I had to help her. I know about that. When you be like, girl, let me get you together. Let me help you out. The Bad Doll said, despite her wealth, she preferred modest raiment and a quiet life. I remember when Pusha T told me that him and his wife had went on vacation and they went to this like really bougie place and they had all the labels, all the Gucci's and the Louis Vuitton and all of it. And then they got there and all the white people was wearing the same thing every day, tattered rags. And they were like, oh, we're new money. And I just thought that was a great story. Fatima Aslam said the Kafia's raiment transcends mere cloth, symbolizing solidarity, resistance, and cultural identity across generations and borders. Yes, Renato all the way in Brazil says racial disparity continues to permeate various facets of society akin to an enduring raiment that drapes inequity across our society. You get an applause for that one. That was a closing statement of a research paper. That's what it was. Okay. Desiree says she's listening to Amanda Seals choosing her raiment for the day. Don't forget the E after the L before the S, girl. Don't forget the E after the L before the S. Okay. Last but not least, who's closing us out? Nikki's going to close us out with knowledge. Okay. Our raiments used to be made from cotton, silk, and wool, and now they're usually made out of oil and plastic. Boo. Boo. I used to get my raiments from 579 and Charlotte Russe and Wet Seal. So shout out to all of us who would look at the Delia's catalog to attempt to get raiment and be told by our parents, absolutely not. You're not ordering from the Delia's catalog, and you're also not getting that inflatable chair that all the white girls had. It's not happening. But good luck. Are y'all ready to get into our 60-second headlines? Because I am, and our guest is here. I just love that my guests be on time. And I'm not sure if it's because they're like afraid that I'm going to break on them or if they're just timely people. But either way, it brings me joy and excitement for my raiments. So let's get into it. Hold on. I'm doing one set of business right quick, and then we're going to get into it. Hold on. You know, it's just me doing the show. It's just me. Okay. It's just me. Let's get into our 60-second headlines. AmandaLand. 60-second headline. And I run down some news right quick.
Run it down, mama. Put us on.
Yes.
Hello,
Logan. How are you doing this morning? I have to meet you at your energy. I'm like, I need to dim the lights in here.
This is, if anyone who knows me is shocked that I am awake this early, I am a bat, okay? I am, I'm
honored. I also love that.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, there's a bat literally right here.
Hey, what's your bat's name?
You know what? You're right. I don't have a name for this bat. What is this bat? You get the honor. What are we naming this bat?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, we could some of the topics, I mean, we could call him like, let's call him, maybe Patrice.
So listen, I
Yeah.
am getting a kitten very soon,
Yeah.
and its name will be Patrice Lumumba. So
Okay.
we are
Okay.
right.
Okay. So we're there. We're there. We're on the same. Okay.
Yes.
So maybe
I'm
not
gonna
Patrice for the
maybe
bat.
Sankara. Thomas Sankara.
Sankara is amazing. Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes, I love bats. People are always like, "What's
Love
wrong
it.
with you?" I'm like, "They're flying puppies." What do we?
They're so adorable.
Yes.
Oh,
They're flying guinea pigs, flying puppies. Like, I don't understand. People are just bizarre.
just have them watch the one. There's like this video of them upside down, of them moving around, and they're like, it looks like they're dancing. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen in your life. Just
And it'll
do
break
yourself
their
a
bat
favor and
bias.
search this.
Okay. It'll break their bat bias. We love it. We love it. So happy to have you join us. I just want to read you all Logan's description on Patreon, because I, on the graphic, was like, I'm not even sure what to put. So I put artistic intellectual, because that is how I refer to myself, because I'm all the things and you were all the things. Let's break it down. Dog guru, photographer, activist, urban gardener, magic practitioner, artist, and Black. Self-positive, non-binary leftist Logan Grendel discusses all of the above and more. Everything from astrology to history to the latest in politics will be covered on the podcast with a wide variety of guests from all walks of life. There are a lot of new shows and voices out there, but Focused on Infinity is covering all the things. I love it. You're talking
Really,
to somebody
it's just that I'm neurodivergent, so like I have to put everything, because I'm gonna get what my brain is giving me.
I used to have a business card that said like rapper, artist. It was like rapper, visual artist, host, radio host, poet. And I remember giving it to someone and then being like, "Why? How you fit all this on the card?"
Yeah, seriously.
Quit
No, turn it
hating.
over. There's more on the back.
There's more in the bag. There's more in the bag. I don't want y'all to miss out on anything. So I gave y'all everything, So shout out. Before we even get started, tell them more about the podcast so that they can tune in.
Yeah, so the podcast is, I have been doing the podcast for a while. I do it infrequently because like I said, I get what my brain is giving me.
Yep.
So I'm there when I'm there, but I am all over the internet. I write, I make music, and actually it's garden season, so I'm starting my seeds. I'm getting ready. I've been growing my own food and really, really, really trying to get everyone, as many people as possible, to grow some of your own food. I live in New York City. I have a little backyard. I grow it in 5-gallon containers, and I grow enough food I literally do not have to buy vegetables after like mid-June, maybe early July, until November. I mean, I love kale, so like I'll just eat kale all the time. But like seriously, if you have like 2 pots, that's plenty. Like you can totally grow something. You don't need a big operation. And I've been doing this for 7 years.
Oh wow!
I call it the
so this is
Infinity
coming
Garden.
true.
It's not an infinity garden until you convince somebody else to grow it. I got the idea from the Victory Gardens in World War II, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not with the, let's make this replicatable, self-sustaining, and more from the people, like I trade with my neighbors. I have actually more than I can eat by myself. So I end up sharing it out. I have like 55 pots of different sizes. Everything. I mean, tomatoes, beans, greens, potatoes.
Wait,
but literally though, beans,
my
greens, potatoes, and tomatoes. Yeah.
My mind went to Sondheim. My mind went to Into the Woods. Greens, greens, parsley, peppers, cabbages, celery, asparagus, and rutabaga. So we both went to valid places. I'm actually in the process of getting a garden organized. So because of this, exactly, like taking inspiration from folks who keep saying grow your own food. So I'm like,
if you need tips, I can. It's really, really easy, and it's like you basically nature wants to feed us. It
Well,
wants
I'm just
us.
gonna
It wants to feed us. We just have
invite
to
you
like give
up
it the
to my
space.
house. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna invite you to my house so that you can help me
I'm
know
down
how to start. All right. You see
anytime.
that? Y'all saw it live. All right. New York, New York. So let's get into the BS. I
Yes, and
actually
the
had
BS it is.
I switched out a story, so I'm gonna just need you to ride with me. One of the stories
I'm
that I
here.
switched. So the story that I switched out was the one about Mexico. Just so y'all know, they tried to play a
Oh,
propaganda Mexico, a Trump propaganda video in Mexico, and
she was not having it.
she's not. Claudia Sheinbaum was like,
Oh, I love that quote.
absolutamente no. What was the quote?
She was like,
Oh yeah.
si no es en la ley, vamos a hacerlo de nuevo, un nueva ley. It's like if it's not in the law, we'll just make a new law.
Just
You
make a new
can't
law.
have that shit here. Like, absolutely not. No, no, no.
Straight up.
And she did it like it was like the most stone cold delivery you ever saw. Oh, so good, so good.
Just like no. Absolutely not. I would have loved to be wherever she was when she saw that, because I know in her delivery she was like, no me gusta.
No, 1,000%, 1,000%. Like, the blood pressure never went above like 60 beats per minute. Just calm.
keep it
She could have been
calm.
resting.
So this is what I'm having to do, is keep it calm when I see RFK and this autism registry. Let's take a listen to the nonsense that this man is spewing. It is honestly, I find myself on a regular basis just like so taken aback by how idiotic these people are. And hold on, actually, the video for some reason did not cross over. So you already mentioned that you are neurodivergent. So before I even show the video, did you know about this happening?
I did, and I was gonna save this for later, but it's one of the reasons that I was like, once I got peer reviewed to death by all of my autistic and ADHD friends, I was like, you know what? Absolutely, and it's the most obvious thing ever, but also I'm not seeking a diagnosis because I don't trust this government with, I mean, it's so eugenicist in every single way. It's always going to go to a bad place. I want them to know as little about me as is humanly possible. I will seek only what I need to get what I need from individual doctors, but otherwise, if I can, I'm trying to stay off the radar.
You're
said
talking to
while like
somebody
literally
who
on the
was
internet.
shaded in real time on Club Shay Shay about a diagnosis, and he was like, so did you get like a medical diagnosis, or like, I mean, just because you're smart doesn't mean you're autistic. And I had to navigate around this because I knew where it was going, and I did not want this interview to be about where it was going. And so I had to be really conscious about how to navigate around that. But I agree with you. The other part of this too is that when you are on a waiting list to get tested for autism, you're taking up another person's space who may actually need the medical support, right? Who may actually, like, children at present are getting denied in school the support that they need. And you have, particularly, I've been seeing Black children being denied this by other Black folks, because there's still this stigma around autism. And there's also this very myopic view of what autism shows up as. So let's take a look at this absolutely terrible person talking about his autism registry, which is just nonsense.
This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize We are doing this to our children.
This man is not a scientist. This man is not an expert in literally anything. So it's not even transferable skills. What are your thoughts?
He is an expert in having a good last name. That's the only thing that man knows. I actually met him once when I was an au pair in Martha's Vineyard a long, long time ago. I didn't know who it was. It was a funny story. Anyway, not the point. We all know
you better be an au pair in Martha's Vineyard. That's a whole book. Please, please write that book.
I grew up with rich people. Like, I was not one, but I grew up, so, you know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we know why we don't use the word Asperger's anymore, right? Like,
please let the people know.
It's this, I mean, it's part of this whole like classification of functional versus non-functional. And what does that always mean? That always means that you're gonna do something. The things that he listed are like the most ridiculously American stereotype stuff. And it's like, these are people who will not be as easily indoctrinated. They won't be functional members of society, and therefore they are not useful. And if they're not useful, then what? Then what? Then if they're not useful, and useful to who? They're useful to their families.
That's the part.
They're useful to themselves. They're useful to literally the world, right? Like, it is really terrifying how much we lean into eugenics in all the ways. And I mean, you know, shout out to you know, to Miss Rona. Like, the weak and sick will fall by the wayside. That was said by the director of this, like, the group that's supposed to be like protecting our health. So all of these like eugenicist ideas are mainstream, and when they just nibble a little bit further and further right, this happens a lot of ways in our society.
Yes,
it is so easy for us to slide further right, even those of us that don't think that we're doing it or realize that we're doing it, because our society is so far right wing, and we don't realize it because we believe the lie. We believe the American lie that we are the place where democracy and freedom is the freest place in the world, and meanwhile we're on the Death Star and we're blowing up planet after planet.
Yes.
You know, it's
Alderaan. By the way, Alderaan comes back. Alderaan was back last night. The new season of Alderaan is back. Speaking of Death Stars.
I haven't seen it.
I'll
get on it. I'll get on it.
You're talking to somebody who tried to watch the series Alderaan 3 times, and by the third time, I was like, why am I doing this? And Desmond Thorne, who comes on the show to tell us what to watch and don't watch, was just like, you're playing yourself. Get it together. But yes, the Death Star. See how the neurodivergent, you said Death Star, and I was like, we're talking about Star Wars now.
That's okay. I have a whole Star Wars character. It's a gray Jedi. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
I love it. Well, my cat's name is Jedi. So, and my cat who just passed away, his name was Lando Calrissian.
Hey, that's a good character arc there.
Yes. The National Institute of Health, for the record, is collecting the private medical records of many Americans from several different federal and commercial databases to give to researchers so that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can attempt to find the cure and cause for autism in 7 months. That's what they're saying. And scientists are like, yeah, we've kind of like dedicated our lives to this. I don't know why he thinks this is going to happen in this amount of time. On the collection of data, the director of NIH, Jay Bhattacharya, told advisors during a Monday presentation that the aim of this collection of data, of health records of autistic people, is to help researchers study autism by giving them comprehensive patient data. He also added that the records would cover a broad range of people across the United States. And the idea of the platform is that the existing data resources are often fragmented and we're not this dumb, right? Are we?
That's a question I stopped asking
I'm just
myself.
Like, all of y'all who was mad about masks, are you? Because that's what this is that. You were mad about being told to get vaccinated by the government. This is that. This is literally just the antithesis of everything he says he's against. He's just doing it antithetically about something else. But this is what this is. And it's deeply frightening anytime you start hearing about registries. Anytime you all start hearing about federal government registries, start being shook, because That's what the IRS is. And look, now Doge has all the IRS access. They're now saying, hey, we're going to get all the immigrants' information as well. Like they're just using it. It's just spreadsheets of horror. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Magneto was right. That's all I have to say about registries.
I wanted that theme music for my floor music when I was a gymnast, and my coach was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Nothing." I'm still mad that I didn't use it.
Still
All
good.
right,
Should play whenever you walk in a room.
Well, in my book, I compare myself to Rogue. So I mean, no, I didn't say Rogue, not to Rogue, to Jean Grey.
Oh, high powered.
Yeah. So this is the story that I switched out. So I don't know if you saw this, but Pamela Bondi, who I believe is a bottle blonde.
Thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to be here for the launch of the Task Force to Eradicate Anti-Christian Bias, as
She might as well just say under his eye.
outlined in the
Literally.
President's executive order. Joining me today are members of the task force and individuals who have been impacted by the anti-Christian bias. Together, this task force will identify any unlawful anti-Christian policies, practices, or conduct across the government, seek input from the faith-based organizations and state governments to end anti-Christian bias.
So this is the move to Christian nationalism. This right here. And it was on C-SPAN. Thoughts?
Better cover this up. They'll have. Listen. I'm like a whole bingo card for them. Okay, so
They're like, too much. Move, just they'll be like.
I'm literally a witch. I'm non-binary. I'm a leftist. I'm black. Like, forget about it. Neurodivergent. Listen, it's funny to say the move to Christian nationalism, though, because I will not die on the hill. I will kill anyone on the hill of this country. Has always been a Christian nationalist country. That's how it started. The fucking doctrine of discovery from the Catholic Church is what helped to create this country, is what helped, set the stage for both the destruction of Native peoples and for the enslavement of African Americans. It's like literally and it's not just Christianity. It's like some of the worst Christians. It's like the Calvinists. The Calvinist work ethic is why we all still feel like we need to earn a living. Rather than being alive is what makes you worthy. It's because you're such a degenerate sinner that you have to spend your entire life earning your life back in order to earn the kingdom of heaven. And it's all baked into everything about our society. And we buy into it in a lot of ways. As a black person who I used to be a card carrying member of the God Squad. Like I went to church 3-4 times a week. I was all about it. And then I realized that I don't want the religion that enslaved my people. Why would I want that? I don't want that.
What was the catalyst? Do you remember? Like, was it a one-day thing? Was it like an aha moment? Was it like a gradual?
My aunt is a Seventh-day Adventist, my favorite aunt, and my mom is like regular, non-denominational black church.
Seventh-day is the whole thing, girl.
So I spent time with my aunt. I would go there on Fridays, hang out with my aunt, then go to her church on Saturday. Then they would talk shit about how all the other churches were celebrating on the wrong day. And like, they were all going, the whole churches will be lost for having the wrong dog. And then I would go to church on Sunday and I was like, is my mom going to hell? Am I half going to hell? And once you start pulling the threads, the whole thing unravels. And I mean, now I'm actually, I would say, more religious than most people I know, but it is I'm a witch. What I worship is the literal ground, the sky, the wind, the rain. I worship the things that give us life. Yes. And I believe in revering them as the things that are actually responsible for everything good and aligning myself with those energies and all that kind of thing. I am way more like religious than most Christians I know, because I actually believe in reverence. It's not about like some white dude with a long beard sitting up in a cloud castle, like, letting children get their faces melted by white phosphorus. Like, that's not, if that is God, I want nothing to do with him, right? Like, we can scrap. We can scrap. Literally. We'll find out if my arms are too short to box with God, because I will try it.
So I want to remind y'all that Logan's pronouns are they, them. And I know y'all, I I want to just remind y'all that when you say Jesus is king, but
Oof, it's giving Stockholm syndrome for me. I'm sorry. I
well,
can't
it's just
apologize.
that if you study Jesus, like, he wasn't about the idolatry that's applied to him. So that's the part for me that's always confusing. He was literally completely not about that. That was the idolatry that was being used to take his life. That was what Caesar was.
Yeah.
So he is not about that. The Bible was written by several people. It has contradictions because of that, right? Because it's different opinions and different perspectives, etc. And it has beautiful stories in it. And like anything else that's written by a bunch of people, it also has stuff that'll make you go, I don't really get down with that. It also has, grand visions of what could happen, right? It's not necessarily even prediction or prophecy. It gets applied to that because of its context, but at the end of the day, these are people, right? These are people. Jesus was a Palestinian who spoke Aramaic, not Hebrew, as the late Pope corrected Netanyahu in real time. Netanyahu tried to tell him that Jesus spoke Hebrew, and he was like, Aramaic. Cut it out. Cut it out. But I think it's also important to note that we don't know about an entire, double decade of Jesus Christ's life.
Have you read the Apocrypha?
I have not.
I know why they took it out. Okay, Jesus was... basically, he becomes the teenager that you would be if you were like, kids play that, like, my dad can beat up your dad?
Yes.
He's like, yeah, that, except for my dad's God. He was smiting. He was just smiting. He was like a teenager, smiting for no reason.
I mean, ultimately, the thing about it is that, let's say 200 years from now, if there's enough people that really rock with what you're about, Logan, you could be also deified. Like, the deification of individuals happens by people the same way that celebrity happens by people. Like, that's what so many people don't understand. You don't make yourself a celebrity. Other people make you a celebrity.
That's real.
So as much as I think it is imperative to have things and people to believe in, right? Because also believing in humanity is necessary to even be a human alive, right? I get really frustrated at this idea of my belief is stronger. Like, what I believe in is that girl, and yours is not. Unless, because I'm like, Buddhist, Muslim, Kabbalah, are you hurting people?
Literally. No, like, that's the problem is not belief, but power. That's it. But the power is Christianity. And I would say, actually, the Abrahamic religions have hegemonic control of the entire world. I don't fuck with any of them. It's really, for me, it's like you have people who are into, A New Hope and Empire and Return of the Jedi, and they're fighting. Like, the Return of the Jedi people believe, okay, yeah, the previous two books were real, but we're the right one. And like, the New Hope people are like, I don't believe in those other two are, they're usurpers. And it's like, they're all fighting over this fandom that I'm like, I don't want to watch any of them. I'm not interested. And they have the power over basically most of the countries of the world. And it is really, really necessary that we detangle, like, our beliefs from power systems. And whenever they exist, even if it's your deep belief, even if you're a Christian, you have to fight Christianity when it is connected to power, especially capitalist power, especially white supremacist power, which is, guess what, all we get in this country.
Yes.
And like, Christian nationalism is we're I mean, the funny thing about, like, like you were saying about Under His Eye, like, literally. And actually, you know what? This will dovetail with, I think, the other topic, but there's Margaret Atwood got all of her stories from things that had actually happened to real people in the world and just applied it to white people. And that's what made it terrifying. But it was stuff that basically our State Department was responsible for.
Yes. Great segue, by the way. Things that our State Department is responsible for. So we've talked about Ibrahim Traore over there in Burkina Faso. We've talked about the incredible work that he has been doing in leading the Sahel countries of Africa to expel their colonizers, to invest in themselves, to become food sovereign, etc. And so it is no surprise that eventually the United States would be like, I don't know about all that. So, and of course, they have a black man who was willing to be the one to bring the accusation. I swear, there is no shortage of coons. That's why when I do What Would the Ancestors Say, I talk about from the voice of Harriet Tubman that, like, during enslavement in the United States, like, people were cooning for survival. Y'all just be cooning for career, okay? Y'all really just be cooning for a look. So let me give y'all a little quick insight into this before we hear what Logan has to say. A firestorm of criticism has erupted across Africa following remarks by U.S. General Michael Langley, head of the United States Africa Command, also known as AFRICOM, accusing Burkina Faso's president, Captain Ibrahim Traore, of misusing the country's gold reserves for personal protection rather than national benefit. So I want to also point out something. He was welcomed to a state dinner recently where he was talking about, and he was like giving all these pats on the back. And this journalist, Ken Klippenstein, wrote an article about it that I didn't like, because essentially what Ken Klippenstein was saying was that there hasn't been success in Africa, that there has been a heightened level of terrorism and terrorist act, and that the United States has lost control. And I'm like, you claim to be this really progressive white man, but there it is. Your fangs just came out. Your fangs just came out. And so I was like, I'm done. I am unsubscribing from your Substack. This whole thing stayed as a pin in my mind, because I was like, one of the things that he was pointing out, though, was he was like, there hasn't been success in Africa, and he was annoyed that they were giving this particular general all of this praise. And I was like, there's more to this. And then here we are. He has to act as if there hasn't been success, quote unquote, on the continent in order to justify what they mean to do. The comments were made during a recent U.S. Senate hearing where General Langley alleged, so no evidence, no witnesses, no testimony, alleged that Traore had diverted vital national resources for his own security interests.
Source, trust me, bro.
This is trust me, bro. And it's really deep, because they're also trying to suggest that because of this, they got to go in and save Africa.
Oh my goodness. This is the oldest trick in the book, the most quintessentially Western trick in the book. You keep your foot on people forever whenever they try and if they tickle your foot trying to get out from under the boot, you're like, look at them. Look how savage they are. They need our help. Yep. Meanwhile, how did they get to the situation that they're in? And I mean, this is really even beyond that, like, Lumumba, Sankara. I mean, I don't think they killed Kwame Nkrumah, but they deposed him.
They put him through it.
Gaddafi, who was trying to unite Africa, and look, and the first thing people are going to make you say is like, but like, weren't they dictators? Didn't they do dictatorship? Okay, I am not going to criticize anyone more than the country that I currently sit in. That is my job. My job is to fight America. And America has got its foot all, and yes, leaders, I mean, I don't really believe in countries. That's a whole different story.
I'm with you.
We're not going to get there. But like, demonizing and helping to demonize leaders from other places you're just doing the CIA's job for them. Because that's what they do. And they probably said the same thing about, Mohammed Mossadegh before they went in to Iran and turned it into essentially the caliphate it is now.
They did. I mean, the United States was responsible for that.
Yeah, we absolutely. And speaking of The Handmaid's Tale, I think that was actually one of the CIA's first missions, was making sure to get rid of Mohammed Mossadegh for what? For trying to get more of his people's own natural resources, getting the money from that to the actual people there. They were like, absolutely not. And that's what's happening now. Africa is, and I mean, all these countries are trying to throw off the shackles of Western hegemony. And
Chad just kicked their French people out. Chad said, get out
yes.
of here. Au revoir. Au revoir.
Ciao, darling. Yeah, but at any rate, it's just nonsense.
He went, wait, let me just say this though. The next stop after kicking them out was he went to go visit Traoré in Burkina Faso.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean,
squabble up.
I mean, we have. Why do we have an AFRICOM? AFRICOM is what? Why?
Why?
This is the United States of America. Why do we have a whole like military and security infrastructure dedicated to the continent of Africa? But you know what? I gotta say this. If you think that Israel doesn't have any analogs, look no further than the country of Liberia. Liberia was created under the exact same auspices. You took a group of people who had suffered a lot, and you were like, you know what? You're right. You don't belong here. Let's give you a place to live. Except that place has people in it.
Are y'all listening?
Right?
Are y'all listening?
Liberia is the exact same thing. And what happened? You had what? You had Americo-Liberians, because when they got there, they're like, we're home. People in Africa were like, who are you?
Who's you?
And they dressed like Americans. They spoke like Americans. They named the cities after Americans. And what was it? It was just a forward military base to get resources and rubber out of Africa using black people. So you take a group that has every reason to be upset and has suffered worse than people should ever have suffered. But then you can turn them into colonizers.
So we have a segment on the show called Black Around the World, Black Around the World, Black Around the World, where we highlight, Maurice, I'm coming to you shortly, where we highlight Black Americans, specifically Black Americans who have expatriated, aka immigrated to other countries. And we always talk about, how are you showing up there not being a colonizer? Like, how are you showing up here? What are you doing actively to immerse? Because it's a dance, right? Because you're also you have to preserve Black culture because they're trying to erase it here. Yeah. So we have to simultaneously be preservationists while also not being colonists, which again aligns with my thesis that Black American people are a unique form of indigeneity, and that is something that has to be preserved. I'm literally going to get my PhD on this again. I'm applying this fall. I mean, so I can just be working on that. I don't want to be known as Amanda Seales, the actress. I really refuse. When I die, if y'all put actress on my tombstone, I'm gonna be so heated. I want at some point, Logan, that people are like, wait a minute, did you know that she was on a TV show?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that you were on the TV. I saw you on the internet from just like the stuff that you were talking. And I was like, yeah, I'm totally down with this person. And then I saw you on Jeopardy, and I was like, I want to have a trivia battle with this person.
Just for the record, I got second place, but I was the only one who won Final
No,
Jeopardy.
you did. You did. You should have won. You should have won.
The buzzer don't be buzzing.
Run it back.
Just so yeah, it's the buzzer is Zionist. The buzzer don't be buzzing. Okay. Well, y'all, Logan, we are so happy to have you with us, and please come back. Please come back. Please come back. Your insights, your vision, your existence is that which speaks to what I know all of us here in the comments are really about. And liberation is not something you can just talk about, something you have to live. And you literally live a liberation existence. And these topics are, I feel like every day I'm spinning a wheel of whackness. Like, what are we gonna jump on? What whackness we gonna land on today? You know, and then they'd be like, haha, new shit, haha. So, but when you have folks like you around and speaking on this and applying not only your intellectualism, but also your morals and your ethics, it really, I feel like for a lot of us, myself specifically, brings hope that we're not alone in that. And, you know, hope is a currency. I always say hope is a wind you can sail on. So thank you so much. I would say, where can people get more focused on Infinity, but you got it right here. All right. Go to the link tree /FOILG. Okay. Not FOI, but FOILG. All right. The Fruit of Islam is a whole other thing. Shout out to Brother Amir, who's probably watching right now. Like, peace, peace, sister, peace, peace, peace. And I look forward to having you back. And whenever you do your podcast again, please consider me as a guest. I would love to join.
I would love to. Thank you. It has been a pleasure. You are amazing.
Thank you. I'm going to send you my info so that we can have a key over the gardens.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Have a good one. Now go to sleep.
Definitely.
Sankara says bye. We are so fortunate. I be knowing the right people, y'all. I be knowing the right people. Let's get into our ambassador of the week. He's been here and on time, and you know how I feel about that. I love an on time brother. AmandaLand. It's the AmandaLand ambassador of the week. Get it done, y'all. Get it done. Get it done, y'all. AmandaLanders. This was a lot of effort, but it's worth it. Hello, Maurice Mitchell, Working Families Party National Director.
I'm blessed. It's so good to be with you.
Wait, there's an echo. Is that just the
There's
room
an
you're
echo.
in?
Oh, it might be the room. It might.
You are in a glass cage of emotion.
It might just be it's totally the acoustics of the room. It is
okay.
Okay.
And so, you have a strong mask because you have to speak. So you speak from right here. It is great to meet you. I'm going to tell you now.
Okay.
I'm coming into this as a blank slate, actively. Okay? I'm coming into this as a blank slate. Now, the people in the chat are going to have questions, and I think they are more informed. So their questions will probably hit at the heart of other things. But I'm coming into this as a radicalized, reformed Democrat who looks at where we are in this country as we are in the process of a scorched earth situation. And so I want to continue as an individual and a citizen of this nation, but also as a person who has a platform to just inform my audience of their options, their supports, their just what the world is. And I don't think people really know as much as people don't know what they don't know. So I said, well, let me learn more about this Working Families Party and what we need to know. And so that's why you're here.
All right.
So you're going to be spieling for a little bit.
All right. I'm ready for the spiel.
You know, that's part of the job, I feel.
Okay. All right. But I would be remiss if I didn't notice those flags in the background because it seems like we share a country in common. I think we are both Grenadians. We're both proud Grenadians.
We have a Greensman in the building. Wait,
Yes.
I did not know that. Where you from in Grenada?
Indeed. Well, my dad is from Bolio in St. George's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I go in Grenada tomorrow, you know.
Oh, for real? I'm going to be in
tomorrow.
Grenada. All right, I'm gonna be in Grenada in a few weeks. We're gonna be doing something to honor the Langdon family, which is Malcolm X's family.
Yes.
Some movement folks are gonna be doing something. So yeah, we're gonna be out there in a few weeks. Yeah. But that's a whole other conversation. That's not why you brought me here. But
no, but it still needed to be addressed because you see Malcolm
Yes.
right here.
I see Malcolm right there. Yes.
Well, you know, because I was telling them earlier that I go in Grenada tomorrow and I'm afraid any kind of weird stupidness coming back into the country, you know? And so I have had to take measures. Why is my accent on? I've had to
Yeah. I was just going with
it. My mother. But I've had to take measures, you know? And that's where we are, that you can't just like assume that everything is going to be regular because it's completely irregular right now.
No, when you cross that border, there are measures you need to take with your devices. You know, make sure.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure you got all the
things.
absolutely
All the things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, big up to the Grenadian in the building.
Yes.
I am absolutely very surprised. I did not know that. But Mitchell is a Grenadian name, and
yes, the current prime minister is a Mitchell. The former prime minister is a Mitchell. The current prime minister is much better than the former prime minister, my distant cousin. So you know,
absolutely fact. My godfather is a Mitchell, Winston Mitchell. So
we might be cousins.
I was about to say the odds that we're related are very high, but that's just Grenada, y'all. Grenada is the size of my foot. So it's actually the population the same as the size of Yonkers. It's 110,000.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
Well, you just won me over a little bit. All right. A little bit.
The Grenadian card. A little bit. All right.
So tell me about the Working Families Party. Tell me about where the Working Families Party is nestled within what we have come to understand as, you know, the binary of political parties here in the United States, and how the Working Families Party exists in either tandem or in contrast to that, etc.
Okay, so let me take you back 26 years to 1998, right? The Working Families Party was founded by labor unions and grassroots organizations that at the time, so 1998, Bill Clinton is president, and Bill Clinton led a movement inside of the Democratic Party to engage in a form of politics that they call triangulation, right? Basically, you take some of the social issues of the Democratic Party, but then you take the economic neoliberal issues and the conservative issues of the Republican Party, you put them together, and also you lean and actually lurch towards Wall Street. So if you think about it, the quote unquote welfare reform, right? The welfare to work, the crime bill, support of free trade, right? And trade policies are in the news now. All of those things happened during the Clinton administration. I like to remind people that neoliberalism has been the consensus between Republicans and Democrats for over 40 years. And, you know, you talk about Ronald Reagan and the neoliberal economic reforms. By neoliberal, I mean, you know, market supremacy, the idea that markets could just fix everything, shareholder supremacy, the idea that profit is the only thing that matters, and just simply making sure that your shareholders are whole. That's the only thing that you should actually focus on. That's the only stakeholder that matters. A lot of the idea that trade and money could flow, even though people can't cross borders, money could, all these things. It's the air that we breathe almost, right? So there were people in labor unions and grassroots organizations at the time that felt completely betrayed by the Democratic Party because of the fact that they were basically going in bed with Wall Street. And today, Wall Street is such a big component of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is this tent that includes people who identify as democratic socialists and billionaires like Mark Cuban, right? Those were the people who built the Working Families Party. And what they did, they were really smart. They looked at this law called fusion. Now, fusion is something that used to be the law of the land in all 50 states, and it allowed parties to be able to, and there are all types of parties that emerged out of fusion, to be able to exist and also to cross-endorse the candidates of other parties. And so if you have fusion, you could endorse for governor a Democrat, even though you're a Working Families Party person. Why that's important is if you're a minor party, it allows you to be able to organize based on your values and your interests, and then bring that into coalition with the major party, and then pull that party in the direction of your issues. What often happens, because this country is very, very undemocratic. We have a rigid two-party system. We have a first past the post electoral system, which means you just need the most votes. You don't even need a majority, and you get the whole bag, right? Very undemocratic type of electoral system. That leads to what ends up becoming the spoiler dilemma. The spoiler dilemma is if you're a third party and you run in a general election, let's say you are to the left of the Democrats, you're likely to recruit not all, but some people from the Democratic Party into your voter coalition, depriving the Democrat of those votes. And that may, not in all cases, that may lead to the party that you're least aligned with, the Republican, to get into office. That spoiler dilemma is designed to force people who have different ideas outside of the two parties not to organize their own parties, right? And so fusion, which used to be the law of the land in all 50 states, was a way for minor parties to be able to organize, to build, and to become major parties. And because fusion did that, the two parties got together in a duopoly and they threatened fusion. And state by state by state, they ended fusion voting. But it wasn't ended in all states. So in New York State, fusion still existed, and the Working Families Party in 1998 built a party and built a party around the interests of labor unions, grassroots organizations, and used fusion in order to transform the politics of New York City, in order to build what is now known as the Progressive Caucus of New York City Council, in order to primary corporate Democrats. And it led to transformative policies going through New York City Council, eventually the state legislature. I like to remind folks, in New York, there was a Republican governor or Republican mayor. We have a Republican mayor right now, but a Republican mayor and Republicans of the state Senate. And it was the organizers in the Working Families Party that pulled the state towards the people, not just towards the left, but towards the people, and transformed the state Senate and was able to flip the state Senate, was able to build a progressive group of city council people that aligned around the interests of labor unions and grassroots organizations and people of color, and then was willing to primary people like Andrew Cuomo, who's trying to run for mayor right now, as governor. And we use the primary in order to challenge corporate Democrats and replace them with educators and grassroots organizers and others, and everyday working people, because we believe that in a democracy, the people should govern, not corporations, not billionaires, not, all types of moneyed interests, not oligarchs. The reality is we live in a very, very, very undemocratic system. And so the Working Families Party believes that ultimately you have to cook what you have in the kitchen. So we do a lot of different things. I talked about New York State, but we operate in now close to 20 states, and we primary corporate Democrats. So we opportunistically will use the Democratic Party's primary in order to pull politics in our direction. We run independent working families party only people where we could win. So in the city of Philadelphia, there's 2 independent working families party people. They're not Democrats, they're not Republicans. They are working families people. So Philadelphia is a 2-party city. It's Democrats and working families. And so the minority whip and minority leader are 2 working class Black folks who represent all of Philadelphia as a working families party people. And in other states, we organize as a party because parties aren't simply having a ballot line like we have in New York and Connecticut. A party is a group of people who align around a particular ideology, who use elections as a way to advance our issues. And we don't simply try to elect people. We're attempting to govern. So we take governing very seriously because governing is the prize. That's why Elon bought the election, right? Elon wouldn't have spent more than $200 million if he didn't recognize that actually having the keys to governance on the federal level is something very, very valuable. It's true on the state level, it's true on the local level. And so all of our work is long-term. This is a generational fight. And we have a long-term interest in changing the structures of our democracy. We want to be in a multiracial, multi-party democracy. So we want fusion to be the law of the land everywhere. We also want multi-member districts, which is much better. So it's not just if you get the most votes, you get the prize. It means that in any one district, you'll have multiple representatives that represent different interests. We want to live in that world. But today, we fight with the tools that we have.
I want to just play with some of the tools that we have right here because the audio is so irritating that I feel like we're not even really getting the best version of your messaging. Do me a solid. Go.
Yes.
Can you do like basic tech?
Yeah.
Okay. So go to settings in StreamYard. See it right there on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I want you to go to audio.
Yep.
What does it say for mic?
It says AirPods.
And then what does it say for
my
what does it say for speaker?
AirPods as well.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. And just echo cancellation is reduced mic background. I could, if you want, I could go somewhere else.
Yes.
Like I could. All right. So then
we'll just talk
peace
amongst
out.
We'll
All right.
come back.
I'm gonna come right back. All right. We're gonna get it together.
Thank you. You know, it's funny. Someone just said anytime a politician is talking, they're selling you on empire. And so what I want to remind you guys is that if you have questions and you have legitimate questions, address them to Mr. Mitchell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I will share the questions. So it's just know that, like, yes, you can rant and whatever in here. It does sound like a sales pitch because that's what I asked him. I said, give me the spiel. So sell me on this. Sell me on this. And that is the audio was solid for the last 2 to 3 minutes. It wasn't for me. I couldn't hear him clearly at all. The echo was bazonkers. So the audio was not fine for me. And at the end of the day, the echo was killing me. So there you go. Maybe y'all had a good time. I didn't have a good time. So there's that. All right.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes. Yes, it is. There it is.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah. There it is. There it is. You're in the soundproof room.
Yeah. You know, I see
the cloth.
We figured it out.
Okay. Yes. Thank you so much for the quick adjustment.
Absolutely.
So people were like, it sounds like he's doing a sales pitch. Yes, because I asked you to do a spiel. I asked you to literally pitch the Working Families Party to me. So, do you consider yourself a politician?
Nah, I've never run for office. I'm an organizer. So I came up through grassroots organizing. I started as a student organizer. When I was a young person, I went to Howard University. I was a campus organizer. one of my first direct actions was when one of our classmates, Prince Jones Jr., was killed by an undercover police officer. And we mobilized and organized and shut down the Department of Justice. And, after school, I went in the field on the grassroots level and organized on the hyper local level in a very under-resourced organization working in Black and Brown communities, places like Wyandanch, like people don't, places like Wyandanch on Long Island, where 100% of the students are Black. It's a small suburban community most people don't think about. Students were graduating under 40% out of that high school, which basically means like if you send your child to that school, they're likely not to get a diploma, not to get a degree. Organizing with the parents and students and people there in order to reform the school district, which was captured by some shady ass people, working on the hyper local level, working to reduce the size of a jail in Suffolk County. They wanted to expand the Suffolk County jail and spend hundreds of millions of dollars on it. So we got, community members, folks who have loved ones on the inside as well as others in order to organize to stop that. We were able to do that. They tried to site a power plant near a Black community, and we worked to bring people together in order to shine light on that. So that's my background. And then when Michael Brown was murdered in 2014, I'm one of a number of people who heard the calling, picked up the phone, reached out to folks like the Organization for Black Struggle, and embedded with the young people and the everyday working class people in Ferguson and elsewhere, and helped to scale the movement for Black lives to become an international movement. And it was only after Donald Trump had won election that I felt the need to build a movement, an electoral movement that was working class and multiracial and willing to speak truth to power and bring the energy and urgency from social movements that I knew from helping to scale the movement for Black lives, as well as the discipline of structured organizing that I developed through the work that I did on the local level with electoral organizing. So that's what brought me to the Working Families Party. But yeah, I've never run for office before. And most of my background is in movement building, mainly in Black communities, but in many different communities and grassroots organizing.
How does one integrate the methods, the practices, the ideologies of grassroots organizing into a party that essentially is integrating into what we know to be a corrupt, binary, morally bereft system?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I don't think it's that deep. Organizers of all stripes, we use tactics in order to advance our agenda. I don't in any way look at voting as being special or elections as being, it's just a tactic, like a march or anything else you do. And look, we've been deprived of all types of power. We've been starved of all types of power. We should use every single form of power that we have access to, from, as workers, our ability to organize our labor power through strikes, to, as consumers and folks who operate in the economy, our ability to organize our buying power through boycotts and other things like that. And as voters, our ability to organize our votes through electoral power. But, I don't fetishize elections. You said that the electoral system is corrupt. Yeah, it's corrupt because we live under capitalism. So it's like, in the same way that when I leave this booth, I get out and I'm living under capitalism, and I need to figure out how to pay my rent. I need to figure out how to buy things. I need to, I participate in the system as much as I critique the system, and I have to figure out what my strategy is. It's like, to me, the same thing as the electoral system. It's not something I think we could ignore because it has a true and real impact on us every single day. And so it's how we participate in a way that would get us from point A to point B. That's how I look at it. I don't look at elections or the electoral system as any more corrupt in anything we have to deal with on any basis. And ultimately, our job is to figure out how to get free in a system that does not operate based on the vision that we see for our community and our family. And there's things that we need to do that are survival mechanisms and harm mitigation, and there's things that we do in order to build the full-throated vision of the world that we want to see that has yet to be born. And those are related and connected, and there's a tension there.
I feel like and in that intention, right, there's become just a much clearer line between reformists and revolutionaries, right? That even that word is a bit broader than it used to mean at one time, right?
Yep.
Where would you say the Working Families Party exists at present?
Well, I mean, this is like a nuanced conversation because there are reformist reforms and there's non-reformist reforms, right? And the working, and so the Working Families Party. Can
you give us an example of each?
Sure. Let me try to give a really good example. A non-reformist reform is something that advances us marginally, but it does it in a way that opens up possibilities for more power, right? A reformist reform would be something that might provide a marginal benefit, but actually closes the possibility for more power, right?
Fair.
Which means, politics are a negotiation. There's times when you should leave the negotiation table when the marginal gain that you're getting comes at too much of a cost for your long-term interest. And then there's times where the marginal gain actually is like an advance that could lead us to actually building more. And so I have no problem with reform as long as that marginal gain opens up more possibility, which is why I think it's so important that we focus on structural power, right? Something that the far right is really good at. When they get into office, when they get power, they figure out how to do two things: how to kneecap their enemies, right? And lock in the kneecapping of their enemies, and how to advantage their long-term power. They don't just focus on issues. Oftentimes when Democrats get into office, they focus on issues. They often don't focus on economic issues or economic power. They might focus on providing like social rights and some often thin social rights concessions to their different groups, right? Like they might be like, hey, there's a Juneteenth holiday, right? We got you a Juneteenth holiday, right? For example, right? Which somebody might argue, oh, well, it's an advance, right? I would argue that when people like the Black radical tradition.
You know what I call Juneteenth? I call it a here nigga damn law.
Yes, 100%. Right?
Here nigga damn.
100%. Okay. All right. What you like? Like, you happy now?
Literally.
You happy? And so look, the type of reform and concession is actually really important. And I think the Democrats have a pretty consistent track record of when it comes to economic rights or structural reforms that will benefit workers or labor. A good example is Barack Obama. He had a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate and a huge majorities in the House. And a lot of the labor unions, some of which are part of the Working Families that knocked doors for him and organized for him, the main reason they're doing it was for this law called card check that would make it so much easier for people to be able to organize. And if you heard him on the campaign trail, he brought it up. But once they got into a governing position where they had the votes, card check went right out the window because it was a structural reform that would actually apply pressure on capital and it will actually constrain capital. And when it comes down to it, there's a capital wing of the Democratic Party and a labor wing. And whenever those two wings are in a fight, 10 times out of 10, it's the capital wing that wins. Right? Well,
because the capital wing is also in party with Republicans. So it's literally, it's not just the capital wing fighting. They're also fighting alongside an entire party that's already fighting for it. So they even have more wind at their back.
Yeah. And look, another example is in states where Democrats have majorities or supermajorities, it's not like organized capital and, corporate elites, they're like, oh, well, the Republicans lost, so we're just going to give up. We're just going to
Right.
give up here. They recruit Democrats, moderate Democrats or corporate Democrats. Those are the new quote unquote Republicans, right?
Yep.
And so the reason why Working Families Party exists is for that reason, particularly. What we'll do is we will come up with a plan to take out all of those corporate Democrats, all of those moderate Democrats, to create the conditions where the contradictions are so intense that the Democrats actually have to concede on the structural and economic concessions of labor unions. And we've been able to do that. Like, I'll give an example. And this is something that people don't even think about. Like, a paid family leave is now law in a number of states. And it's actually transformative or paid sick leave is transformative for a lot of workers. If you are a everyday working class person, you work in the service industry and you work minimum wage. If you were sick, if you were deathly ill and you took off, your boss could just fire you. Be like, that protection is locked in. It's locked in for every single worker in states like Connecticut, in states like New York, Capital didn't want to do that. We forced them to do that, specifically the Working Families Party and Working Families legislators in the city of Philadelphia. In terms of the receipts, in terms of getting down to what this actually means, in the city of Philadelphia during COVID. So during COVID, capital, again, the arm of capital that is real estate capital, they were like, we want our money. We don't care that you're sheltered in place and you can't work. We want our money. And we're going to petition the government to kick y'all out in the street during COVID, right? It was Kendra Brooks, the Working Families Party at-large city council person, who created a law that prevented landlords from just kicking people out in the street, right? Now, that law was emergency COVID law. That law is now permanent, right? So now that law is permanent, when you look at, so there's an affordability crisis that's real,
Absolutely,
especially
yes.
around housing. When you look at the trends in all other Northeast cities and all cities around the country, the trend line is like this. The city of Philadelphia, the trend line is like this because of that law. They didn't want to do it, but when you have independent people in office that truly don't give a fuck, right? You could actually make things happen. The reason why I love doing what I do is that it's so important for our people and so important for organizers, so important. You talked about hope. It's so important for people on the left to have hope and not to fall into cynicism, right? Because to me, cynicism is a project of the right wing, right? And so we need examples of us winning, of us being able to fight capital and win. And it happens, especially on the local level, every single day. It isn't a panacea. It isn't the everything, but it is a tool. And so the more we recruit people who are independent minded, who didn't come through, the country clubs, who didn't come through the Democratic Party, who come in and they're like, I didn't need your money to get here. And I'm not afraid of you. And we have a movement that keeps me here. The more we're able to use the levers of government in order to bring it closer to the people. And so it's one of many tools. I agree. We need to organize our people so that one day we build the power and we're strike ready so we could do a general strike. We need to be able to protest and hit the streets and shut shit down. I am somebody that is a proponent. I am somebody that has been on the front lines and has built mobilizations. But those things on their own also are insufficient. I remember during the movement for Black Lives, when we organized mobilizations around the country, and, social movements, when they're at their best, they surface contradictions that become the conversation everywhere, right? And so I remember when everybody was talking Black Lives Matter and people were concerned with the extrajudicial killing of Black people, which is something that has been going on since this has been a
The
country,
dawn of this
right?
country. Yes.
Right? But people were talking about it, and I remember that it became such an issue that even the president couldn't ignore it. So Obama was talking about it. And what I learned, and this is one of the reasons why I focus so much on governing. So social movements call the question and surface the contradiction, right? However, whenever you create a crisis and you surface a contradiction at the level of society, that contradiction demands to be resolved. The question demands to be answered. Who answers those questions? Who resolves those contradictions? Who deals with the crisis? The most organized forces in society, which tend to be organized capital. So in the example of the 2014, 2015 uprisings, you know, Taser International had an answer, body cameras. They had a product. Under capitalism, when you create a crisis, that crisis becomes a market.
Marketable.
And
yeah.
Yep. And so what ended up happening was they marketed that product in state houses, in city councils, to mayors, to the president, right? And so I realized, oh, we don't have the billions of dollars that organized capital has. But if we could seize governing, so imagine if we had people mobilizing, shutting shit down, and causing the crisis, and then we had people in the governing positions that were willing to answer the call, then we would have had a different arrangement. And also, you know, I'm a student of history, like, you know, the successful bottom-up grassroots movements throughout history that have been successful have had political parties attached to them. They've been movement, there's been movement energy, often there's been labor unions, and there's been political parties working together, either in a national liberation project, in a decolonial project, in a bottom-up project. But all of those examples outside of this country have involved people organizing their labor, organizing on the streets, and organizing their votes, and organizing political and electoral power. So to me, I'm informed by those experiences, and you know, this is a very long way of explaining why
Yes,
I'm at
it
the
is.
Working Families Party. Not because it's easy, not because there aren't contradictions, not because politicians, even the ones that I love, don't fuck up all the time. Look, humans are going to human, but because we need to pull every single lever of power we have.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the questions. Because
All right.
I'm gonna go to the questions. We just gonna come out the gate. Mary W. Mr. Mitchell. Well, it's not DSA. This is the Working Families Party. Ask a question about the Working Families Party, not DSA. This is not about the DSA, the Democratic Socialist. But that is a valid question. Maybe someone else asked it. All right. Danson J. Mr. Mitchell, how do you primary candidates if in New York people in the two-party systems can only vote in the primary?
Oh yeah. So a lot of our people are registered Democrats, right? So like I said, we cook what we have in the kitchen. We're a party in New York. So we have people who are registered Working Families Party. Like I live in New York and I'm registered Working Families Party. So I don't vote in Democratic primaries, right? I'm not a Democrat. I'm a registered Working Families person. But a lot of our folks are registered Democrats, and they're like, "Oh, should we register Working Families?" And we're like, "Well, you don't have to." And actually, for our interests, we actually want a lot of our people as registered Democrats, so we could play inside the Democratic primary. And so we have a party, right? And we have many, many voters who identify as Working Families people who vote inside the Democratic primary. And like, is it a little confusing? Maybe, but again, we're rigging this. We're hacking the two-party system in order to advance our agenda, and we're cooking what we have in the kitchen, right? And so what I understand is that in places like New York, the Democratic primary is where the action is for a lot of places, right? And so because we want to make sure that we have a say about who the mayor of New York is or who your representative is, in a lot of places we do that. But there's some examples where we run people as Working Families only. So Tish James started off as a Working Families only person who kicked the ass of the Democrat and the Republican to run for city council in Brooklyn, right? And so we reserve the right to run in the general election as working families, but again, we need to see the path to power. I'm not going to lead my people into a slaughter. So if I don't see it some way, I'm down for uphill battles, but if I can't see some way for us to actually win, I'm not going to like lie to my people and be like, yeah, like let's run this general election that is doomed for failure. So if we could do it, we will. And Tish James is a perfect example. She started was an independent person, a grassroots lawyer. The Working Families Party provided her entry into office, and she won on the Working Families Party line in the general election. So we do it sometimes. The thing is, like, we are not doctrinaire about what we do. We focus on the strategy. These are all tactics. The thing to focus on is the strategy, to what end.
Right. Well, speaking of that, have you shifted your strategy at all in the urgency of the current administration's power grab? I mean, I don't know that it just feels like for a lot of people, they're like, I didn't know it was going to be like this. It's like, well, they said it was going to be like this. So has the Working Families Party, did the Working Families Party take that seriously? Did they conduct strategies around that? And are those strategies being applied? Or is it just a matter of like figuring out in the moment?
Okay. So absolutely, I like a lot of us was trying to get people to just read Project 2025, to listen to what Trump was saying, to listen to what Steve Bannon was saying, to listen to what Steve Miller was saying, because they said they would do every single thing that they're doing, Yes. But here we are under full-throated fascism. And one thing that we're doing is we are doing our largest grassroots candidate drive. So if you are listening and you're like, yo, I want to run for school board. And here's the thing, there's so many elected offices. There's fire boards and library boards and school boards and city councils and town councils. I know a lot of people, when they think of running as an independent, they often think of the AOC example, right? But what we need is for people to cut their teeth on the local level. And it really matters. There's a reason why Moms for Liberty flooded school boards, right? Because there's actually real power there. City council, so much power there. So if you're listening, I want to invite anybody. We're trying to recruit 1,000 working people to run for office all across the country, 1,000 plus. If I may, people could text the word run to 30403 if you're interested, and we will give you the tools and we will support you in running. So we're doing that. Also, I think the next 6 months to a year would dictate the next 6 years to 20 years. And so yes. I think it's really important. Anybody who's listening, to me, our highest purpose is to build the largest, broadest, most diverse mass movement in this country's history. Correct. And so we can't just wait for elections in 2026. Correct. Right? We need to be organizing right now. And so we are involved. Like we're one of the folks who, worked with a lot of folks to make sure that people were out in the street on April 5th. And we're going to be involved in other moments where we want to bring all of society together on the streets. But it's not just about mobilization. We need people to organize, and we need people to be ready. And so when people hit the streets, we want to absorb people so that they are building their local leadership, right? What we need to do in every single county, in every single state, is have block level leadership, where you are responsible for the 20 or 30 or 50 people around you in your community.
So Cuba.
And so,
because that's what they have in Cuba.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like the CDR in Cuba. Yeah. So like there's examples of that. We need that block level leadership. If we actually want to, the thing is, like with fascists, they only understand the fight. And history has shown us that fascist movements and authoritarian movements, the best defense is an offense. You have to overwhelm them, which means we we have to go hard or go home in terms of our organizing muscle.
But is there any real overwhelming happening if you're only operating within the grid, if you're only operating within the confines of what has been deemed acceptable or what has been deemed even legal in some cases?
Oh, listen, all bets are off when you're dealing with fascists, right? I would say this, right? We are in a moment of fascist breakthrough. It has not yet become fascist consolidation. That might happen in a year. What I mean by that.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, right? So fascist breakthrough means the fascists got the tools of government. They're inside, and they're pulling the levers, right?
Yes.
They're pulling the levers, and now they're going one by one, trying to liquidate their enemies and liquidate the base of power of their enemies, but they have not yet done it. That's breakthrough. When they've achieved that, that's consolidation. So like, if you think about the Nazi Party, for example, right? Like Hitler won an election, got in, but day one Hitler is different than Hitler that is fully consolidated, after the Reichstag fire, so like there is a lot of work that we could do to prevent that consolidation. But when that consolidation happens, then that puts us into a whole different phase of the struggle, right? Which is why what we do today and what we do in the next weeks and what we do in the next 6 months matters so much. And why I say what happens in the next 6 months or the next year will have a huge impact of what happens over the next 6 years or a decade plus.
I mean, I feel like there's, listen, like there's a wide spectrum of folks who are like, we need to try and make this work within the legal system that's here, as well as burn it down, nigga, right? And so all need to be involved.
Yeah, all hands on deck. All hands on deck. This is an all of society mission. Whenever there have been authoritarians or fascists who have taken over any country, the only thing that has defeated the fascists or authoritarians has been a united front, a broad front, right? And so that includes people who, there's enough room for everybody, right? And, people might be thinking, well, okay, I'm in a broad front. I don't want to get lost in the sauce. I don't agree with this faction in the front or that faction in the front. All right, make sure your organizing game is on point. So when we defeat the fascists, you're in a position to be able to lead, right? So there's two things you have to focus on: building a broad front and organizing your faction to be the leading faction, right? That's up to you, right? Again, we can't fall into the cynicism that says if we join a front, then we're just going to get lost in the sauce. We might get lost in the sauce, but that's up to our organizing. It depends on how much and how deep we could organize so that we could be a productive part of the front against fascism. And then once we're able to defeat fascism, because we've done the organizing, we could lead the next phase of the struggle. That's on us.
So you spoken to this, but reiterating is part of the name of the game. Mr. Mitchell, how is the Working Families Party not just Democrats light, since they have to run candidates under that umbrella because of duopoly, and they have to get approval to toe the line?
I mean, we don't gotta. I mean, I guess the thing I would challenge is get approval.
Okay.
Like our people are independent. Our people are folks like Jamal. Like Jamal don't gotta get approval from nobody, right? Like that. Like
he sure as hell acts like it. That's another conversation for another time.
Okay, well, the people that I know that are Working Families candidates are truly independent people. Now, if you're asking, you might be asking a different question, which is like a more nuanced question, which is politicians, right, have to win majorities in their districts or whatever, and so they're dealing with building a not just with the people who they agree with, but also being able to get people who they don't agree with elected. And so sometimes politicians act like politicians. That's different from getting approval from some like corporation or Democratic Party bigwig or anything like that, right? And like politics are limited. It is. Like I run a political party and I believe in grassroots politics, and politics are limited. Like if you are a social movement actor, you're always going to have more space to push the boundaries of the possible, because ultimately what politicians have to do is bring together enough people to get electoral majorities of the people that they govern in any election. You govern everybody. You govern people who align with you. You govern Trump people. You govern. That's a different project than somebody who is a grassroots activist whose main tactic is mobilizations, direct actions, and pushing the boundaries of the possible. Both play critical roles, but those are different roles.
I agree. I feel like there's also just a real transition happening in real time that is requiring a lot of adjusting, right? And a lot of kind of like watching the pieces on the board move in real time and not necessarily knowing how they're going to land. So I'm being generous in saying that before I ask this question, has there been any hindsight that you can share with us around the Working Families Party, around the Working Families Party's endorsing of Kamala Harris?
I mean, I stand 10 toes on that. I stand 10 toes on that.
Okay.
Especially given where we are now. The reason why we endorsed Kamala Harris there were a set of reasons, but it's because we took seriously Trump and MAGA. And we understood that they weren't simply Republicans, that they were actual fascists that will use every single tool that they have to disappear, to kill, to arrest, to deport whoever was in the way of them consolidating all of their power and then using their power simply for their interest. And if we don't have the ability to discern the difference between them and a politician that is attempting to maintain the neoliberal order and liberal democracy, then we have a problem of analysis. It doesn't serve us to not discern that difference. You could be like, I don't like Rocky Road, and I also don't like Strawberry. These things are different. These things are things that I don't like. You could have an analysis that has nuance without betraying your politics. And at the end of the day, because we're a political party, right, and our tactics are electoral, it's our duty to tell our people when it's time for an election what the best strategic decision is, right? There was no way for anybody other than Kamala Harris or Donald Trump to win the election.
Fair.
And so in that binary choice, to me, even more so based on hindsight, I feel very comfortable. And I feel, like I think about.
Do you feel comfortable in the Working Families Party's efforts to create coalition around the aspects that were being disregarded by the Democrats?
Yeah, because we stood 10 toes on our values. We didn't hide the fact that when it came to genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza, we disagreed with the Democrats, and we did both, and we used our resources, our organizing consistently since October 6th in order to organize for Palestinian rights and liberation. And it's like, I live in a world where you could do multiple things at once. And I live in a world that is fucked up.
They weren't doing multiple things at once. So that's why I'm asking because ultimately the Democrats in that time were not doing multiple things at once. Like they were very clearly aligning themselves with a centrist Republican messaging. They were very clearly saying we are not going to do anything different than we have been doing. She said that verbatim, right? And so for the Working Families Party to then endorse it, it says, well, to somebody just watching from the outside, right? They're going to be like, okay, so y'all was over here being different, and now you're endorsing these people saying they're not different. How does because there's a certain version of fusion that was taking place in the endorsement, right? Like there's a certain version of coalition building that is taking place there. And I'm asking about hindsight because I feel like from the outside looking in, if the Working Families Party was going to be very effective in helping this fascist, what was the difference you made? Fascist
breakthrough to consolidation.
Yes. If it was, then what the Democrats needed from you all is for you all to be what they refuse to be, right? And I don't know if there was a lack of willingness to do that on the Working Families Party, or if there was a lack of allowedness to do that, because that's what I want to know.
Nobody allows us to do anything, right? Like I want to explain what parties should be democratic. So the debate, the conversation that we're having, we as the Working Families Party, meaning our activist, we have members that we're a coalition party, so we have members that are grassroots organizations, that are labor institutions, social movement organizations. We struggled around this question, right? And then ultimately, as a party, we aligned around our strategy. And to me, that process is as important as the outcome, right? And so this wasn't easy, but I always remind people that when you don't have 100% of the power, you have to leverage the power that you have in the moments that matter. With elections, there's a very particular date of the election, right? And part of our job is having the ability to inform people, right, how they should vote, what they should do. Like when we're doing that, that means
wait, I'm going to stop you because I feel like we're getting derailed.
Okay.
The question is less about allowedness. More that you got kind of hemmed up on that one.
Yeah.
So that was I'll take the L for that because I put that in there.
Yeah.
So let me just frame it like this. The Democrats are very clearly trash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, in order for that trash to be less pungent, there needed to be some roses stuck in the trash. Working Families Party was a version of those roses. Do you feel that the Working Families Party, and this is hindsight, so this is not blame, this is just
no
examination and analysis, right? Do you feel that the Working Families Party went into that saying, we're going to coalition with the folks you're forgetting? Was that part of the effort of the Working Families Party? Because I feel on the outside, that was the only way the Democrats were going to win. And they were very much like, well, we're not going to do it. So how was it going to get done? Like I suffered like really severe smear campaigns because I was like, y'all are not going to win if you ignore working families, if you ignore folks who are against the genocide, if you ignore trans people, if you ignore the left, you're not going to win. So So what I'm asking is, do you feel the Working Families Party could have gone harder in speaking directly to those spaces that the Democrats forgot, irregardless of, which is a real word apparently now, irregardless of the Democrats, but for the sake of the bigger mission at hand? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure. So I'll say this: upon hindsight, every single day upon hindsight, there's things that I feel like we could have done differently. We could have done more. We could have, look, we lost the election. So clearly that shit didn't work out the way we wanted it to work out. Right. And so absolutely, like, as it relates to engaging the people that did not feel like they had a political home, I mean, that's basically what we do. Like, we actually organize every single day, right? So we're on the streets, like when I'm in Philly or I'm in New York, like, there's actual organizers and actual activists who are not just during election time in conversation with people. Either it's an issue like ethnic cleansing and genocide in Gaza, or it's worker issues, or it's just on some like yo, the two-party system sucks, or the Democrats take us for granted, we're always talking to those folks. And because we're in a long-term conversation, like we don't just hop in, right? We're not just like knocking on your door or sending a video or something weeks before with a, you know what I'm saying? And so like, you know, that also means we're like, let's take, because we brought up Gaza, that means we're in regular conversation with Palestinian activists and others and pro-Palestinian organizations who are struggling with these same contradictions. And like, yo, what do? We don't want Trump to win. And like the Democratic Party are the ones who are bombing our family members. Yes. Like, so what do? Right? And so I think upon hindsight, there's probably a million things we could have done differently.
Name
right.
one.
And that's always
you got a million. One should be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, upon hindsight, you know, we could have maybe used some of our resources that we spent on come
on, National Director, don't put yourself in the corner. He's like, what can I say?
No, I try to say no. Like, no, man. I ain't worried about losing my job. Okay. I'm blessed and highly favored. I ain't worried about that. But you know, we could have used some of our resources that we used in traditional electoral type of communications on just issue communication around the war in Gaza. We could have done something like that. We could have. So it's like upon hindsight,
like posters and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, traditional is like text, paid field, people knocking on your doors, paid phones, you know, mail, things like that, right? Like there's, you know, one of the things that we do, one of the things that I think is really important for all of us to have is to be humble, right? And win or lose, to have a backwards examination of what you've done and be able to talk about, even in a victory, what we've done differently, right? I think that that's healthy. I think, you know, I tweeted like directly after the election, like, we need to learn from this and we need to think differently. And we're currently in an examination about how we show up differently. And that's like a constant conversation, right? I think it's problematic when we can't just be like honest about the fact that we're human and like we're trying to figure things out all the time. And sometimes you like stumble into a win, and sometimes your best strategies lead to a loss. You know, it's just like that's the reality of things. So but in terms of the endorsement, I feel, especially considering the past few months, like absolutely in that binary decision, there's no question. In terms of how I think there were a lot of mistakes that weren't ours, that were the mistakes of the people who raised and spent $1 billion on that election. And I'm not going to own any of that shit.
Okay, good for you. Don't own that. Because I think
I'm not taking any of that shit.
You know, I think for a lot of people, the cynicism, I think for a lot of people, calling it cynicism feels offensive because it's real. You know, like it's not even like just being cynical about it. It's like, no, this is really what it is. And I am deeply disturbed by it. And cynicism can sometimes contextualize something as a hyperbolic reaction, like a hyperbolic negative reaction, when it like is reality for many people that we're in a hyperbolic time. Like our only option is a genocider or a fascist genocider. It's literally like a quiet fascist genocider or a loud fascist genocider. Like that's the options. And then it's like, but she black though, you know? And it's like that became for a lot of people, that made what normally in the past would have been a hold my nose and vote. It made it a lot deeper of a decision.
I would say keep your skepticism, but cynicism is, to me, robs you, right? It's not about them. Keep your skepticism. You should ask all the questions and you should do whatever you want to do with your vote. And because that's simply living the world as we do, understanding that, you know, politicians are going to try to hoodwink you, understanding our history in the two-party system. To me, cynicism, when it's locked in, is like, shit will never change. Nothing could change. To me, the problem with cynicism is that it robs us of the drive to want to organize, right? And that's
I'm
why.
going to push back. I'm going to push
Okay,
back, Mitchell.
please.
Because the cynicism that people are experiencing is based in reality. So it's not robbing them of wanting to push back on, or it's not robbing them of wanting to push back and organize. It's determining how they push back and organize. It's the difference between reforming and revolution. And that's really what it is. It's like the cynicism for these people is, I'm cynical about this system, so I'm not going to organize to work within this system. I'm going to work and I'm going to organize to dismantle this system. That's really the nuance.
Okay, but
it's like negotiating with a dictator. I mean, it's like when they say I won't negotiate with terrorists. We're literally negotiating with terrorists.
I understand.
I understand why a political party would do that. So that's the thing. Like, I understand the nuance of the Working Families Party. Like, you're not here as Maurice Mitchell, the Grenadian. You're here representing Working Families Party, and my questions have been pacifically. framed that way because I understand what we're doing. You know, I didn't book this with you because I ran into you on the street. I booked this through a series of people that represent the Working Families Party. So that is the framing of this interview. And I completely understand within the United States that we live in, where certain pieces of the pie exist. It's a multi-pronged approach. And you said something earlier that is very valid. You need a certain amount of reformists and revolutionaries all in the mix. I'm just saying that because language is incredibly important as we see these people actively weaponize language. I'm just saying that as a party that presents as, you're not as oppositional as the PSL, but you're absolutely not as non-oppositional as the Democrats, right? So as a party that presents as an other to the other, the use of the word cynicism can be offensive to folks who can be useful in the goals of the party.
I understand. And look, I want to be clear, right? Because my analysis is always structural. I don't blame people for this cynicism. I don't blame people for, I don't blame working people for whatever they do. I don't blame working people for voting for Trump, right? I have a structural analysis of it, right? And I understand the economic and social base of the cynicism. I would say that if you come to the conclusion based on your analysis of the system that you want to engage in revolutionary struggle, that is not a cynical decision. That is a hopeful decision.
Correct.
But I guess it's just a semantic. No.
It's not
but
semantic.
I'm not talking about those. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people who drop out and become abstentionist, right? And become nihilistic, right? And say, fuck it, right? That is a natural outgrowth of the cynicism of nothing could work for me. Everything is rigged. Organized capital has it in the bag. Everything is preordained. There's a cabal of people that have already pulled the strings. Fuck it. That is the natural outgrowth of a cynical analysis of the system. So that, I mean, we could, but I understand 100%.
You know what's crazy though, is that, like, I just saw a video this morning of one of the Panthers in the 60s saying why he felt voting was pointless. Right?
Yep.
Which to me is exactly that's saying I'm abstentionist. But at the same time, he was involved in an entire movement that filled the gaps that legislation was not serving. So what we're saying is we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We're saying the same thing just from different points of entry.
100%.
I mean, ultimately, don't let cynicism trick you into not fighting for your own liberation.
Yeah, because I have no problem.
Is that what we're both saying?
Yes, because I have no problem if you don't vote. If you put in work. If you put in work. You know what I'm saying?
Fair. Because people like to vilify the not voting thing. I used to be one of those people.
Oh.
How dare you?
Nah, listen, at the end of the day, I won't, my training and analysis can't have me vilify any working people, even the ones that I deeply disagree with, because there is a structural and economic and social base for where they're coming as working people. And ultimately, working people have been disorganized by the ruling class and by the oligarchs in order to align with the class solidarity of the 1% versus the class solidarity of working people. That's the whole point of the left, because we need to organize people to understand that we have class solidarity.
Which
so
left?
I'm not right. I mean, but I mean,
Real
that
left?
is the point. Look, no. But the point of any real left is not to regard itself as a left. It's to organize everyday working people. That's the job of any real left in any country, right? Is to face working people in all their contradictions, in all their challenges, in all of the confusion, and organize class consciousness over time, and organize the mass democratic leadership of working people. And there's no shortcuts. It's not easy, but that is the role of the left. That's why having powerful and militant labor unions are important. That's why all of that work is important. And that's like historically, whenever you've seen huge shifts in countries, it's been because normally there's been a militant independent labor organizing that's been taking place, as well as social movements. You know, my message is like, it's all in. We need all those ingredients. It's an oil down to bring it back to Grenada. You need all those ingredients.
I don't know what oil dung is.
yeah. It's a gumbo. For people to know what oil down is, it's a gumbo, right? You need all of those ingredients, because people go back and forth with me on, why this, and I'm like, look, it may not be your ministry. Everything isn't your ministry. Like, if electoral politics isn't your ministry, that's cool, but find a ministry in the struggle, right? Like, and I've done many and all things.
Well, I'm going to use that for my last question as a segue to my last question. Is the Working Families Party interested in diversifying their ministry by receiving input from other sources than typical parties do?
We are always open and receiving input, right? So we are, we're always interested in feedback and input, and we don't just listen to sitting elected officials, right? We're a coalition party, and so we have members that are individuals, like we have mass membership, and we have members that are organizations, right? Like labor unions and grassroots organizations and social movements. And we, of course, people who are part of the party are officially part of our processes, and those are the people that I'm ultimately accountable to. And there are people outside and around the party that we roll with and we take feedback from, and we're in relationship to as well. And we're always open to that, and especially in this moment where it's basically all of society moment where we need to be in coalition with everybody. And the thing is, if you're on a coalition table and you agree with everyone, you like everyone, the table isn't big enough. I should be able to be in a coalition table against fascism with people that I might have like tactical agreements with, some strategic disagreements with, like, if we could align around the fact that these people are fascist, that this is not play time, that they actually are willing to, they don't care about decorum or constitutionality or legality or the rules or anything, like they will do what they got to do. And if you agree with that, and that if you agree that we as working people, even if we have differences, racial differences, ethnic differences on the emphasis of what issues you care about, but we could align around that, and we could align against the oligarchs, I could be in a conversation with anybody. So people, in any dimension, and we have to be actually.
And where do the arts and artists fit into this, into the work the Working Families is doing?
I'm so happy you brought that up, because, I'm also somebody who came through the arts. Like I was the lead singer of a hardcore punk rock band. I'm one of the folks who, helped to start the whole Afropunk movement before it became like a corporate endeavor, And so from my own lived experience, I understand the power of arts and culture. And, at the Working Families Party, and this is something that I really learned. I used to think that the culture wars that the right wing fight, and they've been fighting culture wars, I used to think of them as a distraction. Now I understand that that's the main event, right? And so it's our job to not simply be defensive in the culture war. We need to have a cultural war offensive. And that is a front. When we talk about the different ministries, that is a front of the struggle. And so we have an artist council that at the Working Families Party, we have an arts and culture program where we organize people where they're at in the cultural front, and we make investment. I mean, sometimes political organizations are like, all right, we'll bring the poet up after a political meeting. They're like, do it for the strength. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have no money for you. And don't really take the cultural front of the struggle seriously. The real cultural organizers building real power. And so, we are like doubling down on that, especially in this moment, because the reality is like, there's some people who want to nerd out about politics and that's where they're at. And that's dope. And there's other people where that's just not where they're at. And they need to be parts of our movement, right? There's people who, like, if it wasn't for growing up as a kid in the 80s, and having, my cousins were hip hop artists and having them influence me and learning. Thank you. And learning knowledge of self through them, right? And having icons who are basically cultural organizers that inform my politics. It's like, my politics were informed by Maurice Mitchell and KRS-One. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so like we need a cultural offensive like you've never seen. What was that?
I said, so you're a communist.
You're a communist. Well, Maurice was a socialist, right? The New Jew movement. I know, he just tried.
But then, it was a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
So I asked you that question because I would like to reopen the conversation then around the Working Families Party supporting my work, because that was something that was being discussed and then it was reverted under contexts that I'm not going to publicly say, but that I felt were very problematic. And
okay.
Yeah. And a project that I do call What Would the Ancestors Say, which is a one-woman show that uses comedy and lecture and music and characters to talk about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, and through historical and fact-based narrative. So this was something that I was producing on November 2nd. Was it November 2nd? It was the Saturday before the election. And I was speaking to people within the Working Families Party about funding this with a very practical amount of bread. It wasn't crazy. But it got rescinded. It got rescinded within a framework that really made me side eye what this party was really about. And it sounds contradictory to how you are expressing the arts being such a very impactful and necessary tentpole to the work, particularly at a time when we're seeing in real time now the erasure of Black history, Black culture, and the Black experience, as well as erasure of the arts, right? And for someone like me, what I have decided to do in leaving Hollywood is make my work free, but be able to be supported by places that have budgets for this particular type of work, right? And so that's how I am existing. That's how to take it all the way back to the beginning. It's about how do we live in this framework while not perpetuating it? How do we shift this framework demonstratively? And that is how I've chosen to do that. I'm going to do free work, free art for the people that engages, empowers, and educates them, while also supporting myself and the ability to continue that work with organizations that have budgets for that purpose. So that's how I've shifted.
Okay.
So I would love to reopen that conversation if you're interested.
Let's have that conversation, and without knowing about the details of the previous.
So I'm going to tell you the details because you need to know how your party is operating. How would I not tell you the details? You're the boss.
Oh yeah. We'll have a conversation about that.
You may need to correct. And that's not said with shade. That's said with people are oftentimes working with their best intentions. And sometimes, as somebody who has had folks working under, not under is not the word I mean, but working within my framework, they may not have interpreted things the way that I would have wanted them to. So looking forward to
for sure. We'll do that. We'll do that. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We have overstayed our welcome. Maurice,
Ah.
have a great one. And I will send you a virtual nutmeg.
Yes, the virtual nutmeg, the virtual soursop.
Yes. I'm gonna drink a carrot for you, all right?
Yes, drink a carrot for me. Yes.
Large applause, Grenada Master. Remember, you all, if you want to find yourself as somebody running with the support of the Working Families Party, and you're interested, text run to 30403. They are looking to get at least 1,000, you said, folks that are
at least
interested in local politics and shifting the axis of evil through that method. So thank you again. And thank you to your team for making this possible and for being really diligent about making sure that this happened. I know that my audience is really appreciative.
I appreciate you.
All right. Well, that was fabulous. I'm really glad you guys stuck around. And, I know we went a little late today, but I think he was also very generous about receiving the challenges. And I think that's what's most important, is that we have to be able to have conversations with different opinions and different insights, but also understanding that there is, and he said this, right? Understanding that if we all have the same knowledge of this is the enemy, then we have to be able to serve as tributaries to the main stream to flood it out. That's imperative. We have to be able to do that. I get frustrated because I feel like so many people don't want to do that with people like me or with what they deem leftists, etc. They ostracize those who are coming from a different point of view, even though we all have the same concept of who the overarching enemy is. And until we can really do that, which is what community and coalition building is, we're going to continue to see ourselves splintered in our efforts. And it's about refining the rage, not just possessing it. So thank you to Maurice for joining us. So before we get out of here, I am going to be gone next week. And so I will be now providing you with your critical thinking assignment for while I'm gone. So let's get into that. AmandaLand. Let's get All right, so Sharon Osbourne, someone of no consequence, urges the United States to revoke kneecap rappers' visas for Israel criticism. Now, if you don't know who kneecap is a group out of Ireland. And at Coachella, they had a large display that said F Israel. And they are Irish, so there's no secret to their support of Palestinians for the sheer fact that they understand what it means to be colonized. They actually rap in Gaelic, okay? So Kneecap was at Coachella. Kneecap was at Coachella performing, and now she's running her mouth, and also the people on Fox are running their mouth, which, by the way, if Sharon Osbourne and Fox News is running their mouth about you, you're doing a great job, because these people only go after the people who are doing what needs to be done. Okay? Now, these folks are a perfect example of art as resistance, which is different, I'm going to say, than art as activism. I know art as activism has the really jazzy alliteration, but art as resistance is far more committed. It's co-conspiratorial to the breakdown. And what Kneecap does by not only rapping in Gaelic is they also bring attention to a whole matter that many folks may not even feel like they need to have something to say about. Now, I want to just bring to your attention also the fact that Sharon Osbourne is British. So there's a deeper shade that she has for them, because by being from Northern Ireland, from Belfast and Derry, they're very much like F the Brits. F the Brits. Okay? The IRA comes out of Northern Ireland. So they have a fantastic film on Netflix about how they came together, but it also is just really well done in exemplifying the rage and the preservation of culture that the Irish had to do and have had to do. And as I continue to push forward in my assertion that this is what Black Americans are going to be forced to do, this is what we are going to be forced to do, is to exercise and advocate for a preservation of culture. These guys are doing that in their work. So what I want to assign you all for your assignment while I'm gone is an examination of art as resistance. Art as resistance. Okay? Someone just asked, what is up with these commercials? That is the only way that I am supported by this show. There's no sponsorship for this show. I don't get paid for this show. So the commercials provide me a little pittance of income for this show. Okay? That's what the commercials are for. The assignment: describe a current, aka within the last 4 years, example of art as resistance. Write a paragraph or submit a 3-minute video. For the record, if it is longer than a paragraph or it is longer than 3 minutes, I will not read it or watch it. I will not do either of those things. Okay? In this, include the type of art, its creator or creators, what it is resisting, and why it is an effective tool. No, I do not consider memes art. Some might say, but it is. I don't. Okay? Unless the meme is of art. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made for why memes are art and digital art, but in this framework, that is not what I'm referring to. Okay? So there's that. I love how memes are absolutely digital art. To you, L Ginger Snap, that might be the case. I consider that to still be up for discussion. Now, as a 5-sentence paragraph, sure. Intro, support, outro. Again, email vfal@smartfunnyandblack.com. Include your YouTube handle, and you will be vetted as a subscriber to receive the upload link. The deadline is Saturday, May 3rd. Okay? And Jonathan, once again, does a great job of making things very sharp and clear when my head is swimming. Memes are jokes designed for the digital forum. But thank you. I couldn't figure out in the moment why, but that's why. That's why memes are not art. Okay? That's why. So, again, describe a current, within the last 4 years, example of artist resistance. Now, someone else asked, cartoon/panel, is that art? Yes. Yes, it is. It has to be drawn. It has to be conceptualized. You know, memes are kind of like sampling. And there's artistic sampling, and then there's just jack move. You know? But at the end of the day, a meme is not being created for the purpose of art. And that is that. Like, a meme is not being created for the purpose of this is an artistic installation. And I think that's where the line is. It's not a matter of age. It's not a matter of generational difference. It's not being created in the context of this is a piece of art. It's being created in the context of this is a joke that I want you to laugh at. And they can be, that's a great point, Celine. They can hold potential. Like they have the ability to be thought starters, which some would say art has, right? Well, not anyone who doesn't say that just doesn't know anything about art. They also have the ability to be conversation starters, etc. And they are typically disposable, right? So they're very typically like in and out. And they have like a propagandiness to them, which we can see art have. And yes, jokes can be art, but as a comedian, I can tell you that a lot of jokes are not art. So there's that. Graffiti is absolutely art. I don't know why we're debating this, Sandy, to be perfectly honest. Like, I'm just saying it's not. But I get caught up because I want to have the conversation, because I just be liking having conversations. Anywho, would photojournalism be considered as art in this case? Yes. Here's the thing. We know when people are creating something for the sake of artistic purposes. We know this, okay? So it's like, let's not mince words. This will, I guess, also be a great opportunity for you to consider what is art. What is defined as art to you? This is also a great opportunity for your research skills. And this is a great opportunity for, again, exercising conciseness in the relaying of a message. So I am... someone asked if they have been vetted before. Do they have to be vetted again? Yes, because the password changes. Yes. So you're going to need to get vetted again in order to get the new password. Actually, Jax, this is your opportunity to argue why something, e.g. memes, are art. If that's what you choose to take up time with, you may not get the opportunity to do this. 3 minutes is not a long video when I'm only choosing 3 people to be shown. So I was getting to that. I will then choose 3 videos that will be shown, and I will choose 3 passages and paragraphs that I will read. I already explained what the difference between art for activism and art for resistance is. So, because I explained what the difference between activism and resistance is. So just run it back and see the difference. There is something that I want you guys to consider is that by the time you ask me things, I have probably already considered it like 50-11 times, particularly when it's something like this that I'm not talking off the top of my head with. And I don't need to watch 3 minutes of a video to know if it's the video. I know within the first 20 seconds if a video is worth it. So know that. And that should help inform you on how you make your video. Make them first 20 pop. Get to it. Okay? Thank you, 5 Fights. Help the people. Y'all could pick a book. Y'all could pick a book. Okay? Y'all could pick a book. So there's many examples of what constitutes art. And this is an opportunity for you all to, like Jans21 said, figure it out. And again, communicate around each other. Deetra says she's working on strengthening her critical thinking muscle. Well, baby, you in the right place. You are in the right place. So that's how we're doing it. Describe a current within the last 4 years example of art as resistance. This is your opportunity to screenshot this. Write a paragraph or submit a 3-minute video. Include the type of art, its creator, what it is resisting, why it is an effective tool. Email views for AmandaLand at smartfunnyandblack.com. Include your YouTube handle, and you will be vetted as a subscriber to receive the upload link. The deadline is Saturday, May 3rd. All right. There we have it. I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with while I'm out finishing this first full edit of my book and turning it in. And let's get into the public sales announcement. AmandaLand. PSA. For today's public sales announcement, I actually wanted to play a video of Palestinian student Mohsen Mahdawi, who was actually visited by one of his representatives in Vermont while he is being detained. And I want you to listen to what he speaks about, but I also wanted you to hear how he speaks about it.
Basically, he is describing being anti-war as anti-Semitic. How could that be possible when my partners, most of my partners at Columbia's campus and beyond, are Jews and Israelis? My work has been centered on peacemaking. And all what I am doing, I am being a human. My empathy, as I mentioned before, extends beyond the Palestinian people. And my empathy extends to the Jews and to the Israelis. And my hope and my dream is to see this conflict, if one might say, to see an end to the war and end to the killing, to see a peaceful resolution between Palestinians and Israelis. How could this be a threat to anybody except the war machine?
The calmness that you're seeing from him is the resolute knowledge of being completely grounded in your humanity, in your morals, and your principles as they connect to a world for the purpose of living and life. There is no confusion. There is no disturbance. He is so clear and so dedicated and convicted because what he is doing is right. There's nothing. That's why I always say the truth is a short run. It's a short route because it doesn't require explaining. It doesn't require asterisks. It doesn't require any of these extra tacit legs and limbs that so often we find when we listen to politicians. This is a person who is very solidly saying, I am not what they are accusing me of. And I'm going to tell you how. The irony that these politicians are now having to align themselves with members of their constituency who are loudly representative of policies that they may not have supported is very telling of the shift that is taking place. And I don't know Representative Peter Welch's history. I don't know if he is considered to be like one of the good ones, if he's a high quality white. Actually, let me do this. I don't know if he's a high quality white. But what I do know is that being unshakable, unwavering, and unmovable at this time in what you know is not just right, but it's good. You know what's good. So much of the difficulty with being involved with politics, of being aligned with these spaces that are so maligned, is that you so often have to handle that which you know is not good. It's like when drug dealers have to bag up heroin. It's easier to do without gloves because you can feel the weight easier. And so it's faster to get done, but you end up getting a contact high from the rocks. Don't ask why I know that. It's not because I'm a drug dealer. So this is somebody who's saying, wherever y'all put me, whoever y'all put me with, however y'all accuse me, whatever circumstance you put me under, I'm what I am, and I'm going to be what I am because I know that I exist in goodness, and I'm going to emanate it with such commitment that nothing that I come in contact with outside of that is going to penetrate that. That is how I have been having to really affirm and meditate on and commit to. Because there's always people coming to be like, well, maybe you shouldn't, maybe you could, maybe what? No. And I always say it can be very difficult to stick to your guns when everybody else's are pointed at you. So thank you to Mohsen, who very clearly was shaven. The optics be wildin', by the way. The optics be wildin'. Like, they didn't just shave him because they wanted him to look kempt. You know, they also shaved him so that he could look less Arab, right? Okay. Because even though he lives with a clear face, he definitely is not shaving in jail. In detainment. I don't believe that for a second. Everyone have a fabulous next week. AmandaLand. PSA. Hey, come on now. What's up? Show your love. Hey, yeah, show your love. What's up? What's up? What's up? Your love. Show your love. Shout out to Logan, baby. And to Maurice, baby. Hope y'all got to see my interview skills. And now y'all know that I'm really ill. Got to know the deal when people come on your platform. Can't act up, you gotta know what they're knowing. And I was so proud of y'all staying true, but also being respectful. I said, show your love, show your love, show your love. Show your love. And thank you, producer OG, who dropped a super in the chat and say, you are really her, all caps. You always bring such great energy and you are so no nonsense. LOL, I got to see you do stand up and rally in 2024 and it was an experience. Yes. Thank you. Y'all, thank you so much as always. I hope you enjoy your week off. I hope you make sure to get involved in the coalition building that's happening around your neighborhoods. I hope you watch this episode again because I feel like this episode had a lot of just different twists and turns and information and gathering to take in. And it was happening rapidly. So there's that. Wish me safety and ease and all the things. We are in a time. And I don't know how long this time is going to last, but I'm glad to be here with you. 30 seconds of stillness. I enjoyed laughing and learning with you. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell your friends. Also, listen to the podcast. It's available everywhere pods are casted. Listen ad-free by subscribing to Patreon Amanda Seals. Come on and join the Seals Squad. Views from AmandaLand. Live 10 a.m. Eastern Monday through Wednesday with content on Thursday and Friday at YouTube Amanda Seals TV.